Good evening, everybody. I hope you're having good conversation, good time. I want you all to know that we're not following my rule, which is no one leaves till the food is gone. But there is more food there, so help yourself to the desserts, and there's more food to be had. Needs to be eaten. So my role right now is to make a few comments, and I've decided the most important thing I can do is to thank all the people who have made this possible. First of all, the attendees. Glad you're all here. You share the passion that we have for our Constitution, for our fundamental values, and the credo of the LEA. We think it's really great that you're here. I want to thank Steve Deace for surfing in the car all the way up here from Nagoya. Thank you for that. I want to thank people who are recording tonight, and the people who sponsored us in one way or another. Alice is doing the recording, and so is Marcia here, and we have two vendors here. Somebody's doing our photography, and someone else doing our video production. Donates some equipment for Steve Deace to yes. So thank you to you. And I also want to thank John Augustine, who has done the lion's share of the work to put this all together, and he's done a great job. And I want to thank our honorees. Our honorees have been generally in the minority, in lots of hard votes, and we thank them for their service. So for all those things, I want to thank you all. And the next is our little members meeting. We have an election. I think that's all. I think Gordon's been run out. Forgot to warning. Sorry.
It's Michael. Testing. I'm Gordon Anderson. I've been on the LEA board since 1999. I was president for a few years, and Walter Hudson was one of our speakers. Nice to see you. This will be a brief meeting. I wanted to first introduce all of our board members because they did a lot of work, spent a lot of hours putting together the annual report. John Augustine was met. Please stand up. And Dana Birkinshaw, our treasurer. Donald D. Ben Riekers. Paul Sunko. Alex Bednar, our secretary. Sue Erickson. And Jeremy Munson. The only item of business we have is the election of new board members, and as of 10 days ago, we did not have any new submissions, but the 5 whose terms are expiring are willing to run again. So I'm just going to mention their names: John Augustine, Dana Birkinshaw, Don Lee, Ben Rickers, and Paul Susko. Please all stand together, and I would like to have a vote by acclamation that they be reappointed to the board. Can we do that?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now, any one of you that is here can attend any of our board meetings as auditors and assistants and helpers, and that's usually how people get onto the board, is some place is vacated, and other people that have been advising us and attending the meetings and know the process just kind of step up. So I'd like to encourage any of you who enjoy our report and the program to think about being an advisor and attending our meetings and helping us produce the report. Thank you very much.
Like, so it's just true. Week, German, St. Audie.
Next on our agenda is the introduction of the honorees and presentations of their awards. Okay?
All right, so I'm Jeremy Munson. I was served in the legislature for 3 terms. I came in on a special, so I served 5 legislative sessions in the House. I just wanted to kind of give you a brief history of when I got involved in the LEA. When I was running for office, people kept on asking me, well, what kind of legislator are you going to be? And I said, well, I'm going to be a Republican legislator. And then, of course, the next question is, well, what kind of Republican legislator are you going to be, right? So I did some research and looked at scorecards, and they said, well, you know, which legislator are you going to be like? And so I went out and read different scorecards and bills and such, and I pulled out a copy of the LEA that had like Matt Dean and Joyce Pepin on the cover and Draskowski, and I read the bills that they scored, the reasons why they liked him or didn't like him. And the Republicans, by the way, were in the majority in both the House and Senate. So that's easy pickings on bills to find, to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, if you will. And really found these guys and said, when I get to St. Paul, I want to find this Matt Dean guy or this Draskowski guy and learn how they legislate. And so I'm really honored to have met Draskowski and Cal Barr and Lucero and everybody else that's been on the cover of the LEAs, because it was really helpful to meet and to kind of caucus with them in St. Paul. So we have a lot of honorees this year, and I'm going to introduce them instead of having a board member do some research online or discuss, kind of present them individually. I'm going to let the legislators speak for 2 minutes, and I want them to answer 3 questions. One is how many years of service they have in the House or Senate, or in some cases both combined. So how long have they been in St. Paul representing? And what their history with the LEA is. Okay, is this your first award, or have you been involved with the LEA before? And the third one, and so the legislators out there, I want you to put some thought into this to try to keep it in short time. Give us an elevator pitch on a bill that you've been the chief author of, either in this session or previous sessions, that fits within the credo of the LEA, our beliefs of limited government, right? Constitutional conservative type bills. Pick a bill that you've been the chief author of, not something you signed on to, but give us a pitch on a bill that you've written that fits within the LEA credo, something that we want to see. And the reason why I'm asking them to do this is because if every legislator gets up here and talks about how horrible it is in St. Paul, people are going to lose their dinner, okay? I mean, it's some conservative legislation. If the Republicans take, or the people of your party, because we're a nonpartisan organization, if the conservatives take control again, what bill that you have been a chief author of should pass that might show up on the future LEA scorecard? So I guess we're going to go down the list here. And the first honoree is, and I also want to just briefly say, I had an accident, freak accident this week. I had a beer bottle fall out of my fridge and explode and shot glass into my wrist, and so I don't have really good nerves in my finger, so I'm not shaking hands today, except Lucero caught me off guard. His shirt just like put me in a trance, and I accidentally reached out and shook his hand, and he just like, it hurt my hand, but I'm not shaking your hand when you come up here, so don't take offense. So the first honoree for this year is Senator Bruce Anderson. Congratulations, Senator. Years of service you've been in St. Paul, and have you received an LEA award? And then please tell us about a bill that could appear on the cover next year.
Well, some people say I've been in too long, and I shouldn't be there now. Talk to my wife; she'll tell you it's time to retire. And I look in the Bible every time I do my devotions, and I go, I can't find the word retirement. And it doesn't say that. And Moses didn't start his ministry until he was 80. I'm not even close. But I started in 1994. Actually, that was my first year as far as running for office, and my first session was 1995. So was in the House for 18 years, and I'm starting my 12th year in the Senate. So I've been there for a few years, and my wife thinks that's enough. What was the other question?
And you received an LEA award before?
I was just telling Senator Barr, I said, I can't count how many LEA banquets I've been to, and I would have to go back and go into my files and see how many I do have. I probably got 10, maybe 12. So,
Jacketed now or previous sessions, it would be a good LEA.
well, I think a good one. I think Roger, are you here? There he is. He was the tax chair, and we were trying to get rid of the Social Security tax. But everybody wanted to get on a bill, so knowing that Roger was the chief author on there, I did a clone. Or not a clown, not clone. So we had I think we had 3 or 4 clone bills to get rid of Social Security completely. I mean, we didn't want to just limit it to you're making $150,000 a year or whatever, but you get rid of it completely. And I put out bills, my motto, I've got a little card, and probably some people say, well, I always walk into the woods with this in mind. Please don't shoot me. But it says on there, people running government, not government running people. And so I think that's my motto. I've always wanted to see less government, and I always think less is more. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm going to say that. And then you can, we're going to take a picture with Don. Okay. All right, thank you. The next honoree is Senator Cal Barr. Right, I'm going to hand it off to you. 3 questions. Years of service.
Okay, years of service. So this is I did 6 years in the House. And this is my 2nd year in the Senate, so that would make 8. I'm in my 8th year in the legislature. I have received LEA awards in the past, and I believe this will be number 6 or number 7. I know I missed 1 year, and I can't remember if there was a second I missed. And I want to, when you're explaining, you're losing, I get that. But there was 1 year that I got absolutely schnockered. We came back in a special session. We adjourned. We were not quite done with the work. We came back the next day in an immediate special session to pass the omnibus bills, and the speaker told every one of us that if you have an outside job on Friday, you can book work and go to work on Friday. So I booked work and went to Friday, and they voted all the omnibus bills off the floor on Friday. And I missed every one of those votes and missed the LEA award that year. So it was just kind of got schnockered by trusting a Democrat. So words of wisdom, never trust one. So bill that I chief authored, Jeremy reminded me of one that I chief authored when we were in the House together that I'd kind of forgotten about, but it was Protect the Guard. And the gist is, or it's a constitutional principle, we're not supposed to deploy troops without a declaration of war by the Congress. So this says that the governor is not allowed to release the Minnesota Guard for foreign action without the Congress first declaring war. So I believe that would fit right in with your principles.
So, do you know those?
All right, and just so you know, the Defend the Guard bill that Cal had sponsored passed the Texas the legislature and went to a voter referendum on Tuesday, and the citizens of Texas supported the Defend the Guard bill by like 78% or some really high margin. So that is now law in Texas. So good bill. Next member receiving honors tonight is Senator Steve Deace.
Thank you.
And Steve asked that we start making awards in ceramic because he's tiling his floor in his house with these things.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for everything you do with the LEA. It means a lot to us, those of us that stand up for constitutional principles. It's not as popular in St. Paul as it is here, I could tell you that. So the guys and gals who show up here are fighting the way and fighting hard for you. Your questions, Representative Munson?
How many years?
I'm in year 16, I think, in the legislature, and I was in the House for 16, maybe year 17.
You're the second term. That's easy.
Okay, I split a term. I was like, well, 1 year term. Yeah.
Didn't you sponsor the term limits bill?
I've sponsored several term limits bill, yes, and I'm signing on to them yet today.
Got it. You received how many awards?
Either 11 or 13. I'm not sure.
Give us a bill that you think would be perfect to show up on the cover of the LEA.
I think legislative lobbyist bill. So, well, Representative Munson and Representative Barr and I, when we were all representatives, were part of a caucus that was another second Republican caucus. We were the New House Republican caucus. And the other caucus had been led by an individual who worked for a 50-state lobbying firm as the director of public affairs. And of course, we received all kinds of spin-filled notions of how he was not a lobbyist, even though the full function and objective of the organization was to lobby in all 50 states. And so we wrote a bill to make that illegal in Minnesota, and in the steep minority, the smallest of three caucuses in the Minnesota House, we got it to pass on the House floor, and about 90 minutes later it was passed on the Senate floor. The next day it was signed into law here in the state of Minnesota.
Thanks. All right, yeah, good lobbying reform. That's a good subject. Next member that we have here, let's see, Senator Eichhorn is not here. Is that right? No. For the members that are not here, we'd like someone from that body to bring it to Eichhorn. So Senator Eichhorn, could I have his? I'll give it to Draz or Cal. Can you bring it to the here?
Probably.
Senator Lucero, you're up next. Where'd you go? There you are.
Yes.
I do love the shirt.
What?
How many years have you been in the legislature?
Well, thank you, everybody. I am Eric Lucero. I've had the privilege of serving in the legislature for 10 years. I'm in my 10th year this year, so 8 years in the Minnesota House and now second year in the Senate.
Have you received an LEA award?
I believe I have received an LEA every single year I've been in office. I saw this should be my 10th if my math is correct.
The chief author up that would fit within the LEA credos?
A bill that I've chief authored for multiple years now. It's actually a trio of bills, liberty bills, medical freedom, medical liberty, religious liberty, and constitutional Second Amendment equivalent here in the state of Minnesota. Continuing to champion those bills because the reality is the other side wants to make decisions for us and continue to erode that liberty, and we will continue to fight.
Sorry. All right. Let's see. Senator Rasmussen.
Come on up. 7.
All right. Congratulations. Years of service.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys for all the work you do and the LEA report. I think it's really great when you can have something for constituents to take a look at and to see our voting records on really key important issues. And so thank you for all the work that this organization puts into that. I think it's really important. I was in the House for 2 years, and now my second year in the Minnesota Senate. And I think this is the first LEA event I've been at, so it's great to be with you guys tonight. So 2 bills that I was the chief author of that passed last year, which I think really fit with the credo of LEA, was a repeal of the minimum markup on gasoline and on dairy products. So in Minnesota law, it was against the law to sell gas too cheaply. It was against the law to sell dairy products too cheaply. I thought that was ridiculous, against free market principles, hurt consumers. And so we had 2 bills last year to repeal those minimum markups, and they were repealed successfully. So enjoy the free gas and the cheaper gas and the cheaper milk.
Good. Yeah. The Roseland's hand. Yeah.
All right. Jordan, you hit on something. When constituents, or if you bring these to local Republican gatherings, it really lets people dive in deeper to bills than just the title of the bill, and lets people understand why sometimes, when the Republicans are the majority, just because it's a Republican bill doesn't mean it is, conservative, and they get to read a lot of the details about the bill, have a better understanding of what goes on. Let's see, Senate Representative Heitzman is not here today, but Representative Harry Niska is. Come on down.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you to the LEA for putting this on, and for all the work you do, really digging into these issues, and for separating and helping people to really understand what's going on in St. Paul. I'm in my first term in the Minnesota House, so I have failed to win an LEA award up until this year. This will be my first one. I won't give any further explanation about that. I am honored that I'm for the first year ever get to be a constituent of Senator Barr after redistricting. There are a lot of bolder bills that I could point to that I think would fit really well in here. Repealing the Met Council, creating a taxpayer bill of rights so that we're limiting the size of the growth of state government. But this week, I want to talk about a bill that really should be a moderate, reasonable bill that everybody in the legislature should vote for. But some of you may have seen a hearing last week where I learned for the first time that it is no longer a consensus in the state of Minnesota that the state of Minnesota, the legislators and the governor of Minnesota shouldn't tell churches and synagogues and religious schools what they need to believe about issues around sex and gender. Some of you may have seen this video. I offered an amendment brought forward by a broad-based faith community. We have the president of the Islamic Center of Minnesota testify in favor of my amendment, as well as a leader in the Catholic Church running Catholic schools in the inner cities, and 2 other Christian leaders. And Democrats berated me, but more importantly, the faith leaders who came to St. Paul, simply asking for their faith communities to be left alone from the state's mandate on the mandated views about gender identity through the changes in the Human Rights Act that passed last year. I do have a separate bill that I'm honored to say almost the entire Republican caucus has also signed on to. So it might not be a very good way of separating the wheat from the chaff in terms of Republicans, but it's done a very, very good job of revealing to a lot of Minnesotans, some of whom didn't really understand the implications of the agenda of division that the Democrats have. One Minnesota, it's hard to come up with a bigger lie, but they're going to come up with a bigger one when they put their Equal Rights Amendment on the ballot next year. A lot of people are waking up, and I've heard from a lot of people in the last week. A lot of eyes are being opened in the faith community and everyone who cares about freedom of speech and freedom of thought in Minnesota. So that's one that, again, before a week ago, I should have thought that everyone would vote for that. Unfortunately, we've learned that the problem that we're facing and that we're going to face in the next 2 elections is a lot bigger than what we've done, than what we've done. So thank you all for coming out, for showing your commitment to the cause by coming out. And we're going to need a lot bigger of a room in the next couple of years in order to make the change that needs to happen in Minnesota. So sorry, that's a lot more than 2 minutes. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, that was a really great video that was posted on social media, and I encourage you to talk to the area if you didn't quite understand how the Human Rights Act is being forced down the throat of churches when it comes to gender identity stuff. But it's a very important issue. It has to do with First Amendment, so really, really important bill. And last but not least, Representative Isaac Schultz.
Good evening. I am Representative Isaac Schultz. District 10B is my area, Malacca, Foley, in central Minnesota. And I'm serving in my first term, but when I first learned about and started reading about LEA was actually while I was in college. It was also the same period of time where I was first arriving at the Mermaid for events. And so I was a college Republican, and that has really spurred me into the direction that I am today. So that was a full dozen years ago or more. So serving in my first term, so it's an honor to receive this award and fight for conservatism. And beyond that, I would say the bill that I am most passionate about, and I think that this ties into our messaging upcoming for this next election. Joe Biden's crisis at the border means that Democrats are trying to invite more illegals to this state. And so I'm the chief author of the bill to stop illegal immigrants from benefiting from welfare benefits. And that's a key message for us. And Senator Rasmussen also has a bill in the Senate that does a lot of other great things to stop sanctuary cities and a sanctuary state. And I'm the chief author of that as well. So, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all to the honorees. And again, we got two more that I need to just hand off to people that are not here for Senator Steve Green, who I served with the House, and Representative Josh Heitzman. Take Josh's. And give you Steve Green. Okay. Again, let's see what's next on the agenda.
I think it's time to move on to our featured speaker tonight, and John Augustine is slated to introduce him.
The one drawing rule. Fake out during. As I said,
And thank you, Jeremy, for that great job. We did that a little different than we have in the past, and I think it went very well. So thank you.
I'm giving the other was the issue there.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm going to let you know a little secret before I start. Only one page marks here. So, when the venue has been very good and flexible tonight, Natalia with the booking and also Paige supervising the catering here at the Mermaid. Let's give them a hand for accommodating an awful lot of people who walk through the door. So when they wanted the original deadline for our registration, so we set it in the invitation, and that deadline came, and we had about 35 people signed up. So I was nervous, and it's like we have done some promotion, but I we got to do more promotion. We cannot let Steve Deace come here with 35 people. So we every social media network I had any connection to. Steve, to his credit, also posted it on his various social media platforms to promote the organization, despite having not met any of us, but seeing some of our work and wanted to support us. And I pestered Alpha News incessantly, and they got them to do an article about the event as well. And all of a sudden, the numbers started to rise up. And Gordon, I don't know, you've been on the board the longest. I don't know if I've ever seen more people at LEA Banquet than this. Is this the most you've ever seen? Yeah, I think the most we had was 70 or 72.
Yeah, I've been to several about that size, but congratulations, everybody. Set a new record. And
If you like it a lot, advance register next year. Okay?
How many is it?
It's over 90. So thank you very much for your watch. So a few other people besides the honorary legislators that I would recognize here. We have some former keynote speakers here. Walter Hudson is also a member of the legislature now with honorable mention in this year's report. Professor John Spry is a past keynote speaker. He's here tonight. We have former legislators here, Roger Chamberlain, Phil Cranky, Mark Olson, who also served on our LEA board, Tad Jude. It's great to see that legacy of people who been supporting us in the past continue to be here to support us. And so with that, I've been asked a few times, how did I manage to get Steve Deace here tonight? And so I'm going to try to explain that to you. So we had basically we've occasionally tried to bring in a speaker from outside Minnesota to compare how other states are doing with promoting conservative principles and policies. Because, I mean, yes, guys, you're doing a great job, but we can always do better, right? It's pretty obvious in this state we can do better. So in 2015, we had a legislator from Wisconsin come in and tell us stories of how they reined in public employee unions, ended subsidies to Planned Parenthood, and passed photo ID as part of improving election integrity. And so that was encouraging. And that one got derailed a little bit there with Scott Walker and the running for president, siren song of Foxconn and everything. But still, they made a lot of accomplishments there. And so in the aftermath of the 2022 debacle elections that were great for the freshmen that got elected, but overall it was a debacle, and it occurred to me that it was time to try to get some advice from outside the state again. So immediately I thought of Iowa and Steve Deace. Because Iowa's passed constitutional carry, election integrity, fetal heartbeat protection legislation. They pushed back early in 2021 against COVID restrictions, where we got a 15-month state of emergency. My daughter was attending a charter school, had about 1 week of in-person instruction, and not in consecutive days, over the span of a year. So, and that was at a charter school. So that's what the Edgecrats and the Teachers Union Health Department did there. So anyway, Iowa also banned COVID vaccine passports, mandatory masking for schools and local governments. They've also done well repealing the activist liberals that were on their Supreme Court. So it sounds like there's some things we could learn from them. And how did I become aware of Steve Deace? Well, I think it was about the winter of 18-19, when I had Blaze TV on my satellite, just doing something mundane like paying bills. And it was readily apparent when Steve's show came on that Steve and the guys involved with his show were not blow-dried products of the Beltway operative class. They had authentic opinions, and no issues or politicians were immune from scrutiny. Then his show disappeared from satellite TV, but I remembered the name. And occasionally I looked at his Twitter feed for perspectives on current events, but the COVID hysteria hit. He was not just parroting the conventional elite narrative. Another reason I was interested is I figured it'd be easier to get him here than someone from outside the Midwest. So anyway, I reached out to him just after the 2022 elections, and I presented a sob story about Minnesota and how we really needed help. And Steve, he agreed to come here at a very reasonable price. Likely thinks of inspiring conservatism in Minnesota as a charitable contribution that can be written off for charitable purposes.
I like lost causes.
But so he agreed to do it for last year's banquet, actually, but he had to postpone because of publicity surrounding the nefarious movie release. He wrote the book on which that movie is based. Well, we took him up on his offer this year to speak to us at another time. So now he's here tonight. So let's give a big LEA welcome to our new ally from Iowa, Mr. Steve Deace.
Thank you, guys. I know you brought me here because you wanted ornery Steve, but I'm kind of in a good mood. My Bitcoin investment's up 66% in ROI in the last 2 years. Oh yeah, we're gonna have a grandkid too. I mean, there's that, you know. So we're pretty excited about that. And my oldest daughter is very excited that I'm here with you guys tonight because her and her husband, they wanted to have go through their first alone to do it together. So they asked us all to stay away until they called us. And I was going to have a real hard time honoring that. But now I'm 240 miles away, so it's a lot easier. But thank you guys. Any hockey fans in the room? I mean, Minnesota, there's got to be, right? My first ever gig in media, when I first got a job as a junior sports reporter at the Des Moines Register. That was my first gig. And the first beat that they gave me was covering our minor league hockey team, the Des Moines Buccaneers. And because I grew up in Michigan, and I love hockey, all right? And so they figured I got that beat because no one else on the staff knew a damn thing about hockey, you know? And it's kind of funny, my wife and I, we joke now. When I came home that night and told her I got this beat covering this minor league hockey team, man, we celebrated like I just won a Pulitzer, you know? Like, that was like the best pan of hamburger helper like Amy ever made. We were so psyched, you know. I know it's weird, like people that want to be president call us and stuff, and we're like, did we used to cover the Des Moines Buccaneers? But then one night I go up to cover a game and I see a guy sitting up in the press area where I sit, and he looks really familiar. I know I'm like, it cannot be him. No way it's him. You know, and so I'm credentialed media. I'm supposed to act professional, and I go up to sit next to him, and not like right next to him because that'd be like a dude code violation. But you know, like I'm in like a row. I'm in enough where eventually I can do to him what you guys did to me tonight. Sit close enough where I'm not like on top of him and it's awkward, but close enough where I can turn and start talking to him and make it natural, right? So, you know, I want to do that to him, you know, because I'm pretty sure it's been a few years since I've seen him, but I'm pretty sure I know who this is. And he's wearing a Pittsburgh Penguins representative badge. That's his press thing. So now I'm pretty confident I know who he is. And during the first intermission, I turn around and I'm like, "You're Herb Brooks, aren't you?" And it was Herb Brooks, 1980 U.S. Olympic team, University of Minnesota. You know, and what's funny is this is Iowa, so they don't know hockey. Like, so he's up there, no one's bothering him, you know. So I got to sit up there all night long during this minor league hockey game, and talk the game with friggin' Herb Brooks, man. And these are the things my wife kills me because I never ask for autographs, I never ask for pictures, you know, because she likes to scrapbook and hold on to these things. But that was one of the more subtle, cool things I ever got to do as a sports reporter. And that's when working in media was fun. And I didn't have to crucify and exercise people for a living like I do now. And if you look at what's going on in our culture, we could use a few exorcisms right now. And I thought about on the drive up here, so you guys need to know the way I do this. You'll notice I don't have any notes. I don't have a script. If you watch me do my show, I don't have any notes. I don't have a script. I'm one of the few people in our businesses like write out their show. I tried doing that, and I couldn't keep up with myself, and I kept referring to my notes. I said, screw it, one day I'm going to wing it. And so I've just done it that way ever since. And it helps when you're born with basically a photographic memory, so I can't take credit for that. So I recall very easily. And then you learn to just talk until you say something, and then people think you're smart, right? And if you say it like with confidence, like if you get charged with like doing a men's Bible study or women's Bible study, and you're doing like Old Testament stuff with all those like Old Testament Jewish names, just say them all very confidently, and everybody thinks you're right. Won't know the difference, you know? Yeah.
And so what I do, similar to how I do my show, before I get up here, I did have to pee because I'm 50 now and I do that a lot. But I always go find a corner stall and I get prayed up. And then I come up, you guys hand me a microphone, and whatever I say next is entirely not my responsibility. Blame it all on the Lord, okay? Because I got to thinking about what specifically I wanted to talk to you guys about tonight. And I am going to address what John discussed, but maybe not the way that you think. I could walk you through a process of what we did in Iowa, and when the gal from Alpha News called me to promote this event, that's what I did with her. We could talk about our principles. Our principles are not the problem. We have too few people that believe in them. That's a problem. Okay, but our principles are not the problem. The process by which we did what we did in Iowa, you could emulate here. Your major urban area has more voters to overcome statewide than Des Moines, Iowa does. But otherwise, your demographics, you're like a lot of states in America. One or two major metropolitan areas that Democrats dominate, and then the rest of the state is basically Alabama. Okay, that's much of America. You know, I always see grifters in conservative media, like sometimes they're called colleagues, and they pass out these maps to you guys. You guys lap them up and love them. You know, it's these maps that show it's going to be a landslide. Look at how much the country's red, how much you see these, right? County by county maps. How much of it is red and how much of it is blue. Here's what we don't tell you, because then you guys won't click on our stuff if you do that. So I don't care if you click on our stuff, so I'll tell you. All right? In the 21st century, Democrats have averaged anywhere between 12 and 21% of America's counties they have won. 12 and 21%. Have Democrats won any presidential elections in the 21st century, guys? Yeah. Which means they did it by winning somewhere. When they lose, they get 12. When they win, they get somewhere between 16 to 21. They control just a few strategically located urban populations in key states and nothing else. But they just overwhelm you with that's why they want to get rid of the Electoral College. So they could just have the country determined that way. You know, I did an MSNBC hit when I was a contributor for them. Yeah, that did happen once, if you can believe it. They were just communists then. They weren't crazy yet. And I was on with Ed Rendell, the former Philadelphia mayor, who was the former chairman of the DNC. And he tried to claim that Republicans had taken over the Senate in the 2014 elections because of gerrymandering in Senate elections, which are statewide. I said, Ed, did we redraw the boundaries of Georgia? Did Georgia get I mean, how did we gerrymander U.S. Senate seats? But it was amazing. I called him on complete and total BS on national television. How do you think he responded? He just went, no, that's how they respond now. Yeah. No, he kind of just went like full Jehovah's Witness and just like blinked twice and then went right back to his spiel, you know? And like it's like almost like a form of conditioning, and you can't break through it. They do not abandon their talking points. No matter what you say, no matter what data you produce, it's ready, fire, aim. They have a narrative, they're gonna push it, and there is nothing you will provide that will make them think, well, by golly, I hadn't looked at it like that before. Thank you. No. Now they'll just call you, with the guy sitting in the back, a racist. Okay? And so that's why I want to focus on the very first step of how we turned Iowa, the very first step. And I'm going to speak tonight exclusively about that. Because if you cannot reach this first step, you won't be able to emulate the rest of what we did. About 10 years ago, I was invited by Salem, the biggest Christian media company in North America, to try out to be their New York City afternoon drive time guy. Then working media in New York City is like what Mike Huckabee once told me about the vice presidency. It's the job nobody wants, but nobody can refuse. Okay? I didn't want to live in New York City. My family didn't want to live in New York City, which basically means New Jersey. You know, and then I'm on trains for 2 hours every day, the cost of living and everything else. But on the other hand,
this is the number one media market on planet Earth. To say no, I meant I couldn't say no. So they had people like me, Eric Metaxas, and the ULI guy, congressman, who yelled ULI at Obama. Each of us got like a week. There were like 5 of us. I can't remember who the other 2 were. I think Joe Piscopo might have been one of them. And then they gave him the morning show, and which was weird. Like I used to watch You Are Black and I Am White. Now I'm competing with Joe Piscopo for a job. It's a strange business, you know. But when I got done with my week, I asked them how I did, you know, and because they were very complimentary all week long, and I was deathly afraid they were going to offer me this job. You know, like, I want to do really good, but not too good, you know? And so at the end of on Friday, before I signed out, I asked them, hey, give me some constructive criticism. There's got to be something you didn't like. You know, the staff, they look at each other, you know, and they finally look at me. You know, I'm a kid from Iowa. Salem is in the same building as the Heisman Trophy Trust. So, like, I would like, before the show, I went down to the Heisman Trophy Trust display every day and took my picture with the Heisman Trophy, like, every day. Okay? Trinity Cemetery is next door. There's, like, 5 founding fathers buried in there. Okay? I mean, I went to go visit Macy's, okay, because I love Miracle on 34th Street. I mean, I did the tourist thing. You know, I was Iowa nice. You know, I just loved being, you know, in New York City for a week. I thought it was so cool. And when we got done, they said something to me when I asked for constructive criticism I never imagined in a million years I was going to hear. And honestly, it's the only time in my entire life anyone has ever said this to me. They looked at me and they said, well, okay, if we're being honest, we think you're too nice. And I was like, really? Because like back home, when I walk in a room, people hear, Darth freaking Vader back home. All right? I mean, I'm the guy that, back home, I'm somewhere between Harvey Keitel's Fixer from Pulp Fiction and Godfather. All right? I mean, I'm the guy that when the activists were like, hey, we're calling Deace, the politicians like, don't do that. Okay? And so now I'm like too nice. You're too nice. I can promise you, I've been in this room with you for the last 2 hours. You're all too nice. All of you. You're too nice. And if you can't overcome that, Iowa nice, Minnesota nice, if we can't overcome that, we're doomed. There's no chance. It won't matter how firm you are in your principles. It won't matter how cunning you are in your process. If you cannot get over being nicer than God, if you don't care that people who hate what you believe will hate you for what you believe, you don't have a chance. And I'm here to tell you right now, that is our number one problem. That is our number one problem. Basically, what is happening to your state is it's being turned into a colder California. Essentially, you are everything you hate about California and none of the stuff you actually like. And why is this happening? You're letting it happen.
What?
We are not a nation of laws, and we never have been. We are a nation of political will, and we always will be. The laws are what gets enforced. The rules are what gets enforced, not what is written, what gets enforced. I've spent the last 4 years listening to you guys call me, email me, text me, bitching and moaning about stolen elections and ballot harvesting. We're going to run the same guy they stole the election from 4 years ago. They raised hundreds of millions of dollars for Stop the Steal. Anybody know where all that money went? Because I don't.
Anybody know where the ballot harvesting operation is to counter theirs? Anybody know where that is? I don't know where it is either. How about the fleet of right-wing attorneys right out of Regent or Liberty Law School that are ready to go fight this? Dude, they're just out in the open. Like the Michigan Secretary of State, we played the clip on the show today. Just out in the open. Yeah, I'm already on the phone with the Arizona, Pennsylvania Secretaries of State. We'll be stealing this from you here in 240 days. We got this thing on lockdown. I mean, they're literally giving Joe Biden bumps of Adderall to show up tonight. And they don't care. You don't see them panicking over. They're not sweating it out. They got a feeble dementia patient with a 37% approval rating. They're not panicked because they're not challenged. We act like these people are so smart. It's funny. You win every argument when the other side doesn't argue back. We act like these people are so brilliant. Weird. You win every strategy when the other side doesn't have one. We act like these people are so courageous, brave. It's funny, you win every fight when the other side doesn't punch back. We have to get over being nice. We have some rules. I'm a Christian. My life is not my own. It was bought at a high price. If you're a believer, the same is true of you. There are things we cannot do. We can't bear false witness. We can't steal. That's kind of about it. There's a few things we can't do because that ruins our testimony and that reflects poorly upon our Lord. That's it. Don't do those things. Don't debase those things. Other than that, go big or go home. The kingdom of heaven is forcefully advancing, and violent men lay hold of it. Master, master, I know you gave me these talents, but I was afraid of failing you. I've heard you were a cruel taskmaster, and I didn't want to fail you, so I took the talents you gave me, and I buried them. I didn't want to risk losing them. Depart from me, you wicked servant, into the den of iniquity. I do not know you. My house will be a house of prayer for all nations as I turn over tables. I fashion a whip, like a Devo video, whip it, a whip. And I drive the money changers out of the temple. If I did a sermon today at a church and I open up the Bibles, and open up your Bibles to Ezekiel 23. I think it's Ezekiel 23. And then Israel lusted after her lovers, like whores. And her lovers of foreign gods were like men whose penises were like donkeys and whose ejaculate was like horses. And then I closed the Bible up and said, let us pray. You don't freak out. Cover your kids' ears. Get them in kids' church. We put a condom on the Bible before we preach it. Got to have safe preaching. This has to stop. We have handicapped ourselves. They've already got total control of the process. How about we start with stop letting them have total control of us? My colleague, you just clapped to that, yeah. My colleague at Blaze TV, Oron McIntyre, not my producer, the other guy, he posted something today, man, I cannot like it enough. He said, Republicans fight with the rules Democrats permit them to have.
Yeah, who's nuts?
Who wins a war that way? Man, if you got to frame the battlefield, you got to determine what tactics and weapons your enemies used, would you ever lose? Spoiler alert, no. I've been told many times in my career, major arguments without the Bible. How do you think I answer that? No. So your request is, hey, I've got this devastating weapon that's undefeated in the universe, and so you want me to fight you without using it? No.
I'm going to use it, and I'm going to devastate you with it. We are too nice. We had this problem in Iowa. Here's where it got us. If I had started on the air on the blowtorch WHO, even a year or two earlier, it wouldn't have been successful, and I would not be where I'm at today. It's providential timing. They were ready for what I represented, which was a total paradigm shift because of what had happened to our state. When I took over during the 2006 election cycle, and if you remember the 2006 election cycle, that was an oldie but goodie, right? Everybody remembers that one fondly. It went great, right? No, it didn't go good at all. We sucked and got our asses kicked, which previewed what happened in 2008 when the Cloward-Piven strategy incarnate won a landslide to the White House. In 2006, I took over late in that year, had no real idea the influence WHO could wield. I could wield on it. I was really just a kid with a toy pushing buttons, had no idea. The end of that election cycle for the first time in Iowa since before Reconstruction. So we're going before the modern two-party system, which came in during Reconstruction. For the first time, Democrats had complete and total control of Iowa government. And it wasn't just majorities. I didn't say majorities. I said control. They owned the governor's mansion. They had 60 seats in the Iowa House out of 100. There were only 17 Republicans, a record low out of 50 Senate seats. Senate was 33-17. This was a state, we were just as nice, which is a nice way of saying lazy. We were just as nice as you all. We're neighbors, we're cousins. We played for the pig. We sent Tom Harkin and Chuck Grassley to the Senate together. Well, I'm sorry. We sent Tom Harkin's mailbox in Indianola, Iowa to the Senate. Tom Harkin has lived in Iowa about as much as y'all did, which is to say never. Okay? Had a mailbox in Indianola. We had a fish fry once a year. That was about it. Steak fry, whatever the hell it was. And we had Chuck Grassley, nice guy, rhino. In fact, when I came in, he was trying to convince he was trying to get a $50 million earmark to build an indoor rainforest in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I wanted to send a message right away when I came in. This is not going to be your grandpappy show. So the first policy I ever went after on the air, I ever mocked on the air, wrote parodies about it, mimicked it, turned it into scorn and derision, was Chuck Grassley's $50 million indoor rainforest. Because Chuck Grassley's never spoken to me in 25 years, by the way. I'm sleeping okay. I'm doing all right. I'm okay. They also didn't get that damn rainforest. We made them pull it because they were being mocked so badly. I wanted to send a message. I'm going to stand for what is true, not for your jersey. And if you cross us, I'm going to make you hurt, no matter what jersey you're wearing. I didn't know who was going to work. I just knew what we were doing wasn't working. And if we were not at this desperate stage, Iowa was on the brink of becoming the first state ever to pass right to work and then repeal it. And that was providential too, because who trained me in political activism were the people at Right to Work. And they are hardcore. The Right to Work people are basically like the Ron Paul apostles. Okay? These are the true believers. And they taught me almost everything I know about grassroots activism. They brought the whole company to Iowa for the entire legislative session because they were afraid of the precedent would set if Iowa fell, and then we had a presidential caucus right after that, it would become a national issue. They had to stop it here, and we did. And many of the things you hear me talk about on how to engage the political process, I learned in those early years. So let me tell you why you're nice. And it's not just the Midwestern nice. I mean, we can be fierce. We can be competitors. I think PJ Fleck tells the team, hey, before you guys go out there and row the boat, be nice. No? Go rip their heads off. That's rowing the boat.
It's because of the paradigm you've been taught. See, we've been taught a political paradigm on the right called access-based politics. Politics is about access. Seat at the table. Funny, there's whole chapters in the book of Proverbs warning believers about desiring a seat at the king's table and to not accept it, in fact. That's our whole paradigm. That's why we have grifting. It doesn't matter how we repackaged ourselves. 50 years ago, 40 years ago, Pat Robertson prophetically went to Ronald Reagan, urging him, he wasn't going to run for president again, urging him to go ahead and give it one more shot. The country needed him. 40 years later, that's the Ronald Reagan guy who went to the national religious broadcasters and called the Soviets the evil empire, the only president in American history to write a book while in office, and it was called Abortion and the Conscience of a Nation, that guy. 40 years later, Pat Robertson's endorsing pro-abort, drag-dressing Rudy Giuliani for president in a primary. That happened during the 2008 Iowa caucuses. Now, how does this happen? Because in the end, we always sell out. And it happens to every insurgency movement on the right, in every era. The Christian conservatives, it happened to them. Dick Armey, the former majority leader, hates Christian conservatives. Hates them. He's been very public about it for the last 20 years since he left Congress. I can tell you why. I know the story. Because when he was in Congress, the Republicans barely survived. Their majority barely survived after the Clinton impeachment. And so he wanted to reward some Christian conservative leaders, high-profile names, because they had done a great job organizing and getting the base out, so to preserve the majority. So he called him in after that election. And he said, hey, there's a couple of issues you guys asked me for. I just didn't think we could do them in an election year. I didn't have the numbers. You earned it. You guys came out for us. I want to repay you. Pick one of them. I'll make it happen. We'll put it on the president's desk and make him veto it. Or sign it. Those leaders told him, don't do that, actually. We can raise more money if you never bring it up. Plus, we got some squishy Republicans that won't vote for it, and then we can't really lie to our people to vote for these rhinos. And he's like, you guys are the Christians? So the Christian conservatives, they sold out. And now we're at the kids' table in the Republican Party. Nobody cares about us. White evangelicals are now what black voters are in the Democratic Party. You have nowhere else to go. You'll slavishly give us 80, 90% of your votes. We don't have to do anything for you. Next came the Tea Party. That was cool for like 5 minutes. First Tea Party Congress ended up being the 4th most lavish spending Congress in American history, adjusted for inflation. Held the line on nothing. Nothing. So many, you guys remember the term scam pack from about a decade ago? That came out of the Tea Party movement. Overrun by grifters again. This is happening to MAGA right now. And no one will call any of this out. Why? Because if I call it out, I won't get access. We have a running joke. I have the most listened to show on the right for someone who's never been invited to speak at CPAC ever. Why? Because they know if they hand me this microphone, I'm going to say to that audience things like what I'm saying to you right now. And they don't want that. Many people, too many of your leaders on the right are Esau's, not Jacob's. They're not imperfect vessels wrestling with God. That's what Israel means for a name. By the way, Jacob's name means schemer in Hebrew. They're Esau's, selling their birthright for a bowl of soup now. Give me access. Give me a speaker. You want to know why you don't ever hear the Family Research Council people on my show? Because I've worked with all these groups on the Ted Cruz presidential campaign. Tony Perkins couldn't even deliver his home state of Louisiana. When I was in an airport hangar. We were the first presidential campaign to try to get all of the massive Christian conservative groups that founded CPAC, basically, to get them all aligned behind one candidate for the first time. You know why that never happened before, by the way?
Well, if they all endorse one candidate, there can only be like one of everything then. I can't pass out favors or get a seat at the table. That's why. Finally, we were able to get them all aligned with us. And I remember when Jeff Rowe called me, I was actually about to board a plane to try to go be part of the group to close this deal with these people to get them to endorse Senator Cruz for president. And I'm getting ready, I see my phone, it's Jeff Rowe calling me, he says, hey man, I'm getting word that they're going to endorse. I think your job's getting a lot easier. Next thing I said to Jeff Rowe is, brother, we're getting elected president of the United States. I was convinced of it. Then we saw what these people could actually deliver when it was game time. Because I'm thinking, I see their banquets, I see their events, I see their crowds. Well, there's audience and then there's influence. And not the same thing. They could deliver nothing. There's one group, one national Christian conservative group, that if you called me up and said, Steve, who should I go with and give money to? I'll tell you who it is, American Family Association. They're the only ones. By the way, not a coincidence, they're the ones that don't go to Washington, D.C. They stay away from there. The Wildmans beat the place. They've stayed in Tupelo, Mississippi all these years. So they haven't been zombified by the swamp. All the other groups, they have, and they're ineffective. Salt has lost its flavor or savor, so it's of no use to anybody except being thrown out, trampled underfoot. This is why we lose. We are practicing an industry. How do I get this person to endorse my book? How do I get this person to put me on Fox? I'm not saying that there's not a patronage part of politics. We're not Vulcans, we're humans. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have people that you know and trust go to war with you, or to look to advance people that you have relationships with that also happen to be, hopefully, capable. Well, that last part's not a given, usually. But here's the thing, that has to be a means to an end. It can't be the means to the end in and of itself. And for us, it is. This is why it doesn't happen on the other side. It's fascinating when you spend 3 years as a contributor on MSNBC. It is like interning with the Borg Queen without having to assimilate. You get a chance to see how the hive mind behaves. And it blew my mind how much different their ecosystem and habitat is compared to ours. It is totally different. When I was on MSNBC for 3 years, man, we debated every topic you could imagine. Gay marriage. Yeah, I actually debated gay marriage with MSNBC and lived to tell about it, all right? Abortion, everything you can think about, we debated. One topic, though, never ever came up. We never debated who's the more electable Democrat in this key primary. Never came up. We never debated who's the real progressive in this Democratic primary, the true believer. Never came up. During the night of the 2012 election, I was waiting to see if Romney was going to win, because that was going to determine whether they were going to have me on. And it's funny, I remember that night flipping back and forth between Fox News and MSNBC and how they messaged to their audience on election night. Again, a completely different ecosystem. Every show on MSNBC was, Obama delivered for you. Obama stayed true. Obama didn't sell out. Obama didn't move to the middle. He didn't triangulate like Bill Clinton. He's one of us. He earned your vote. He stood with the base. On Fox News, Romney's the best you can do. Suck it up. You aren't going to get any better. You don't want the Democrats to win, do you? Lesser of two evils. Totally different ecosystem. One, ironically, the Marxists had a meritocracy, and the capitalists had a participatory trophy, a participation trophy. Hey, Romney just gets stuff because he's the Republican nominee. I must have missed the part in the Bible, and he won a GOP primary, and it was credited in righteousness. He owes you nothing. The minute he wins a primary, he owes you nothing. Nothing? How many of you own a business in this room? Is there ever a juncture where your employees owe you nothing? Raise your hand. Funny, none of your hands went back up. How come in this vocation, there is a place and point in time where our employees owe us nothing? Explain that to me. Because that's what they are, our employees. We're fanboys. We call our employees up and say, hey, if you have time, can you call me back? Think NFL owners call up their star players and say, hey, I know I just cut you a $10 million signing bonus. If you have a minute, can you text me back? I have a question. No. They just wrote a damn $10 million check. Call me back. I wrote you a $10 million check. Why do we act like this? Because you've been told that this is about access. The other side understands that it's about leverage. Now in Iowa, we don't have hockey for a niche sport. Wrestling is our niche sport in hockey. And that makes me very sad, frankly. I didn't make the basketball team one year in middle school, and I tried wrestling. My wife's a therapist now, and I was a late bloomer from a puberty perspective, and let's just say that in the 7th and the 8th grade, there were parts of the singlet that should have bulged that didn't, and other parts that should not have bulged that did. And I've hunted down everybody who had every copy of the Jackson Park Junior High Middle School yearbook. And everybody responsible is dead now. I mean, my stepdad wouldn't let me quit anything except that. I won one match, and it was because of Sparta Junior High had a measles outbreak, and there wasn't a kid to wrestle at my weight, and so I won by forfeit. And I didn't know that. I hadn't seen Vision Quest. It was rated R. My parents didn't let me see it, So I thought when we were doing wrestling, I thought we were going to do like figure 4 leg locks, and I was going to be Jimmy Superfly Snuka coming off the top rope. I'm like, what are these bear crawls? What is this? I didn't know, I didn't understand anything at all about the sport. I did understand, though, the sport can humiliate you, and it did. And so finally, Dave one day came to me, my stepdad had said, I'm gonna need you to quit this. I said, he said, really, this is just, it's a generational level embarrassment to the family. And I said, thank God. Okay? But the one thing I learned getting my ass kicked for 2 months attempting to middle school wrestle is that wrestling at that level is not about theatrics like at the pro level. It's about leverage. Low man wins. Why? He has leverage. Leverage. It's about leverage. On the line of scrimmage in football, it's a sport I was much better at, that I know much more about. Do you want your offensive lineman after the ball is snapped to stand straight up? No, they lose leverage. Okay? The other side understands that it's about leverage. That's why they don't sweat who's the more electable Democrat in this key U.S. Senate primary. Because they know whether they get a Mary Landrieu elected in Louisiana somehow, or a Dianne Feinstein elected for decades in California, they're all voting the same way. Because they have leverage. And if Mary Landrieu doesn't want to vote that way, they'll just sacrifice her seat and just pick up something else in a blue seat and take her out. You'll play the game. Bob Casey Sr. gave a primetime address at the 1992 Democratic National Convention. He was the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania. Prior to Dobbs, the last time we brought a case before the Supreme Court that threatened to overturn Roe v. Wade was Casey versus Planned Parenthood. He was the Casey. He was trying to end abortion in Pennsylvania. They let him do the primetime address because, Bill Clinton had just sister soldier. So he was letting America know, I'm not playing Jesse Jackson's race game. Go out and get a formerly pro-life Democrat Senator Al Gore as my running mate. We're new Democrats. So let me put a pro-life governor from a battleground state in prime time. He got booed off the stage. And that's the last time that a pro-lifer ever was allowed to speak in prime time as a politician at the Democratic National Convention. 30 years ago, a Democratic governor almost overturned Roe, would have without Sandra Day O'Connor, the Republican appointee on the court. She was the deciding vote. 30 years later, you can't get elected flag swatter unless you're willing to abort your own children live on TV in the Democratic Party. Barack Obama in 2008 ran for president, did an interview for Rick Warren, saying, I believe in traditional marriage. Marriage is between a man and a woman. On the date, on Barack Obama's election day in California, we had a marriage amendment on the ballot that day. It got 60% of the vote. That marriage amendment got more votes than any Republican running statewide in California has ever received, including Ronald Reagan when he was running for governor of California. That was 2008. 15 years later, you don't get to scrub toilets at the Democrat National Committee unless you're willing to be in a gay marriage. How? How did they do this? Leverage. They have leverage across the board. We'll take you out. We don't care about lessers of two. We're not playing any. They don't use any of the talking points on each other that we do to shape ourselves over here. None. They have prophetic levels of accountability. They'll call people out. Do you guys see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez couldn't leave a damn movie theater that night? Did you see that? And it wasn't, this is MAGA country, bitch. It wasn't that. It was her own people they waited for her. They knew she was in the theater. They saw her. They waited for her and made her life miserable all the way to the escalator. Her own constituents, her own people did this. Now, I'm not saying adopt that level of behavior, but maybe we can figure out how to not use that behavior for that kind of conviction. What they do compared to what we do, oh, please just sell me out just a little bit. Please just you know what, sodomize me with this plunger only 3 times tonight, please. I'm not exaggerating. We've done this for a generation. It has to stop, or we're not going to stop them. Where have we been successful on the right? Since Reagan left the national stage, there are only 2 issues that we have advanced on the right. Or 2 issues that are more right-wing now than they were 40 years ago when Reagan left in January of 1989. Guns is one, and now school choice is the other. Why? Same thing happened both times. The NRA has been wanting to sell out many times, but they can't. Because there's another gun group called Gun Owners of America. They're not nearly as big as they are, but they're big enough that if the NRA goes full seat at the table and sells you out, they've got competition, so it keeps them honest. In between these 2 groups, they've raised so much money independent of the Republican Party process that they can fund an actual movement. And so they can hold people accountable. They don't rely on the party for everything. Ask your men here and women who are in public office. Once you get elected, then one of the main reasons you lose our people, these guys can't do anything without the machinery of the party. Can't send you a letter, nothing, unless they can fund it themselves. All the machinery of politics, everything it takes to write a piece of legislation, to get elected, to stay elected, to run for re-election, it's all owned by the party system. And eventually it just wears you down, man. So the gun groups created an independent ecosystem from the Republican Party. So they get to go guns up to the Republican Party whenever they want. How did they do this with school choice? Well, a few donors at Americans for Prosperity and a guy named Chris Rufo, they did it. Same thing. The amount of funding that they could bring, they just take Republicans in primaries out all the time. Just did it in Texas the other night. Took like 7 people out. 7 Republicans in Texas that didn't want to support school choice, took them out. They got our governor in Iowa to do something I've never seen before. I've never seen a sitting Republican governor endorse against other Republicans in the legislature in a primary. Never seen it. Because of school choice, Governor Reynolds did it in 4 races in 2022 and swept, including the chairman of the Education Committee in the legislature, swept them all out. And we have unfettered school choice in Iowa. We have to, the hour is late, both here and culturally. So let me wrap up. I wish we had time to form I used to say when people ask me about a third party, I'd like to try a second party first. Okay? But the party's almost over now. We're on the lip of the abyss, man. If Abaddon isn't open, we're cracking the lock as we speak, as a culture. So we've got to move. And if you're worried about, can I really say no? No is a magical word. I love the word no. No basically started the civil rights movement. One 29-year-old Baptist seamstress got on a bus one day after a hard day. They told her to sit back. And she just said one word. No. No. God gives his law to Moses. Moses writes in the Pentateuch, God wrote these words on these tablets with his own fingers. Moses writes those words. And you know what's funny? All those statements are no statements. Don't do this. Don't do that. Definitely don't do that. Don't do this. No, 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 no. 10 no. 10 no's. No's a great word. Yeah, it's going to be no for me, dog. Nope. No, we're not going there. Not doing that. No. No. Gonna say no. It'll be hard the first couple times. After a while, though, you're going to love it. Like I say no to my kids now when I'm really going to say yes, just because I like to say no. Okay? I'm just kidding. Yeah, sure, we can do that. You learn to love no. Learn to love no. Love it again. Rekindle your love with no. Take no on a long weekend. No. No, Aunt Petunia, you're not gonna get to spout off all of Thanksgiving dinner with the stuff you read on the Chiron from MSNBC. No, not this year. Not happening. No. We have to stop being nice. And if you're concerned, hey, I'm not sure I can do that. When you go home tonight, look at your kids and grandkids. 10 years ago, nobody knew what a trainee bathroom was. Now they're everywhere you go. So if you're not sure, Steve, I just don't know. I'm Minnesota nice. I'm Iowa nice. I'm just a sweet old lady. I know Biden wants to be called Corn Pop. I really am Corn Pop. Okay? And and I really think if we could just nice these people and we'll keep giving them honorariums and keep giving them book deals, and sooner or later these Republican leaders will do what we want them to do. Sooner or later these Democrats will be like, you guys just, man, you're so nice. I mean, Saul Alinsky, who needs them? Nope. Nope. If you're not sure you can do that, go home, look at your kids and grandkids, and consider what the next 5 years will look like if you're not like that and ready to do that. Secondly, unfortunately, because the hour is late, we're going to have to figure out how to work within the framework of this duopoly. You're in the Republican Party, but you are not of it. You're in the Republican Party, but you are not of it. When they do what aligns with your value system, you go along with it. When they don't, you don't. That's it. That's the deal. Here are my terms. When you guys do what the Constitution and my Lord says is right, you'll have no better friend than me. When you don't, you won't. As our show was really beginning to take off at WHO, and I was actually doing what they were accusing me of. I'd recruited candidates to run. I basically helped run a shadow political party within the Republican Party. And so when they couldn't get my bosses to fire me because our ratings were too good, they tried the other approach. So they tried to come after me. That didn't work. So then they tried to sweeten me. They tried to be nice to me. Okay? And so, every town has its one steakhouse downtown, wherever yours is here, where like the lobbyists and stuff hang out. It's 801 Grand in Des Moines. Okay? And so one day our House Speaker and his sugar daddy, because now the Republicans, we've helped them take back control of the House, but they're not doing a damn thing. Nothing. And man, I'm Hiroshimaing these people every afternoon for 3 hours on HO. Some days, if it's not as bad, I just Nagasaki them. Okay? Just killing them. And I've got the people that I got elected, they're literally coming out of the cloakroom where they're having private meetings, calling the hotline on WHO and reporting back what everybody said and who said it. And it's freaking the Republican Party out, this level of sunlight. They can't handle it. They've never had this kind of accountability. They're losing their minds. So they try to get me canned. It doesn't work. So then they decide they're going to try to befriend me. So they invite me, the Speaker of the House, and his donor sugar daddy, who basically funds the GOP caucus. Well, their GOP caucus, not the guys we recruited. They want to take me to lunch one day at 801 grade. I'd never been. I couldn't afford it, you know. So I get to go down there. And I guess maybe it's just different for me. I had to move. I went to 11 different schools, K through 12. My stepdad was very abusive. And so when you hear your mom getting beat upstairs, where you're the new kid in school all the time, you kind of learn how to get by without a lot of affirmation from people and how to just be on your own. So it's not much of an adjustment for me. I know for those of you that grew up in good homes, I didn't. I feel for you. You grew up in a good home. So it's going to be hard for you to learn how to not get affirmed and have people support you. Okay? So they take me to this lunch, and it's a really good lunch. What's funny is a lot of the servants at the restaurant know who I am. All right? They don't know who the Speaker of the House is or who his donor is. Okay? So the guys like cutting our roast beef know who I am, and we're like talking, how the Hawkeyes and stuff are doing. It's kind of funny. So we sit down, and they bring their assistants in. Of course, they're females, and they all look like they're, came off the cover of, whatever the latest, softcore porn skin magazine is. I'm like, I've never seen women like in Iowa that look like this, except on your staff. Weird. And so I'm sure they're very capable at their jobs. And anyway, so we have this great lunch, and we're joking and having fun, and we've got common interests, in sports and movies and stuff, And I can tell they're like looking for how they're going to transition into talking shop. And I never give them that opening the whole time. I just keep it like light, and everything else. And then I look at my watch and I got to go get ready for my show. So I never gave them that opening. So I get up. Absolute, what I'm about to tell you is the absolute, as God is my witness, this happened. It is the truth. As I get up, I look at them and I say, hey, I want to say thank you to you guys. I really appreciate it. I've never been able to afford eating here. Food's really good, man. I really appreciate it. I'd love to do this again. I'm happy, that we found some common ground and got along. But I need you guys to know one thing, okay? This will have nothing to do with how I do my show every afternoon on WHO. Nothing. Nothing at all. I just need you guys to do your jobs that we elected you to do. If you guys keep your promises to my audience, I am going to be the biggest fan you've ever had, the best friend you've ever had. I'll sing your praises. But if you sell us out and you screw us for 3 hours every day on a 50,000 watt radio station, I'm going to make you wish that my biological daddy wore a condom that night. And that's exactly what I said to them. Don't betray your base. Now, the moral of the story is that is not a great way to get invited back to Eveluation Grade. Because I didn't get invited back, actually. I never had a conversation with the Speaker of the House again after that. Okay? But you know what? That's okay. Because guess what we have now? All that stuff that John mentioned we're doing now. Do you know why we're doing that stuff now? Because we had to get to the point where you're at now, where they were going to California, Iowa. We were going to be a state with, why did they have gays come and get married here and challenge it in courts? Because Iowa has a non-residency requirement, or doesn't have one, I should say. So you could literally turn Iowa into the gay marriage mecca. Iowa. They were going to do that here, where I live. And the only reason they didn't, the only reason we got to the other steps is because we got to the point that we realized, oh, hell no. Nope. Hell no. No, not happening. No. You're not at that point yet. And until you get there, all the other stuff we could talk about, processes and plans, you have to shift the paradigm in here and in here first. We're done being nice. That doesn't mean we're douchebags. That doesn't mean we're jerks. That doesn't mean we're dishonest. That doesn't mean we debase people or humiliate them. It just means we're not getting pushed around anymore. We are the people of God. We're Americans. We have rights, where God gave us those rights. He expects us to be good stewards of those rights. He will hold us accountable if we squander those rights. And so I'm not going to fear the one that can destroy the body or slander me or humiliate me or shun me. I'm going to fear the one that could do those things and then also cast my soul into hell. And I'm going to care about my kids and my grandkids and their futures more than I'm going to care about yours. Because it looks like you're eating pretty well. And until you get there, truly get there, that you just don't care. Like Phil Collins would say, I don't care any mo-wo. Till you get there, you won't be able to beat them. So you're going to have to change your paradigm before you come up with a plan and a process, and before you can actually advance your principles. It's not about access, it's about leverage. I'll leave you with this. When I was a little kid, I loved Happy Days. And last week, by the way, was the 50th anniversary, if you can believe, or 45th anniversary of when Robin Williams made his national TV debut as Mork on Happy Days. Nobody knew what a Robin Williams was. He shows up as a guest star. They used it to launch the TV show Mork and Mindy. That anniversary was last week. I loved that show too when I was a little kid. And the Fonz, you guys remember the Fonz? Yeah, right. If you stepped out of line with Fonz, okay, and it was time for him to break his foot off some proper in your backside, right? What did he always say to you? You remember? What was that? Step into the, it's like step in the men's room. Now, you won't say that on a show nowadays. It's called like Will It Grace if you do that nowadays. All right? Step in the men's room means like a Lindsey Graham kind of thing nowadays. All right? But they didn't have those hang-ups back then. Everybody knew step into the men's room meant like, trip beyond the woodshed. Now, in the pilot episode, someone stupidly said yeah. An example was made out of him. And so the rest of the episodes of Happy Days, it ran for 10 more years. And on every episode when Fonz said, would you like to step into the men's room? Everybody saw what happened to the idiot in the pilot episode that said yes. On all the rest of the episodes, what did everybody else say? I'm good. No, we straight. I'm good. I'm feeling him. I'm on you. We're good. I got nothing. No beef. Everybody knew better. Pick somebody and make an example out of it. Righteously. We had a company, Mid-American Energy in Iowa, that was funding disgusting attack ads against one of our best candidates one year. So what I organized was a lit drop of the cul-de-sac that the CDO of Mid-American Energy at the time lived in. Just disgusting, sickening, revolting ads from our Democrat Senate leader. And stuff, personal stuff, family stuff, none of it's true, by the way. All lies. My candidates' kids are crying at school, getting bullied at school because of what's airing on the airwaves. So what we did is we drove flyers. I wrote the flyers myself. Hey, did you know that your neighbor so-and-so is funding ads that are slandering and libeling this family and making this guy's kids cry at school and get picked on and bullied at school? Did you know this? Did you know your neighbor funds things like this? And we dropped every driveway in his cul-de-sac, just his cul-de-sac, not the whole neighborhood. Okay, we wake up on a Saturday morning and see these, you're going to think they're in the entire neighborhood. Man, it was college football season. I'm not giving him that much of my time. Okay? So we just dropped this cul-de-sac. He pulled all of his funding from that Democratic super PAC. To this day, Mid-American Energy hasn't funded a political ad in Iowa ever since. We made an example. Pick somebody or something that deserves it. That needs a little Nathan discipline. Thou art the man. And break your foot off in their backside, something proper. Righteously. Fashion a whip of cords. Turn over the money changers. Set an example. Make someone an example so they know, oh, maybe these people mean it this time. If they don't fear you, they won't give you anything. And if you don't leave here with anything else I've bored you with or said for the last hour time I've spoken, because they didn't tell me how much time to speak. Don't do that with a talk show. I'm just trained to talk until somebody stops me. Okay? But if you don't make them fear you, you'll get nothing from them. It's not about access. It's about leverage. Don't let them force you into nicing yourself out of a civilization. Your state may be too far gone. It's possible. We have history books. There's only one eternal kingdom, and nothing of this world is it. It may be time to flock to Iowa, or you mentioned Oklahoma over there, okay? Strategic retreats are biblical. The Bible says, flee the abomination of desolation. So the believers did. They went to Petra. If Churchill had not called for a strategic retreat on the beaches of Dunkirk, you'd all be Zig Heiling right now. The war would have ended before we even got in it. Sometimes there does need to be a strategic retreat. So you may end up there. But end up there because you tried and the grip of the spirit of the age was just too tight. Not because you were too damn nice. Try punching back. Try saying no. And I'm not even talking about the Democrats yet. I'm talking about the Republicans. Most of this conversation has not been about Democrats. It's been about the Republicans.
It's all about Bobby, you got it. Why would we do this shit without you? That's it.
What he said, I think.
I was severely you guys, we can go drink his bar. You know what? He's right. Well, we wouldn't have you guys. Why would we have this type of meeting? The pissing twins, Charles, or it worms, but thank you all for the rest of the word. You supposed to be good. I'll change you.
Everybody votes. I'm going to be really honest. He was severely intoxicated, but he was also correct. Thank you, guys.